So I typically insert components on the board from the lowest profile to the highest profile. We've got all the resistors in. I've actually added a couple of diodes here off camera. The capacitors and everything else I think are going to stand higher than the socket. So I'm going to move on to the sockets next, which is what we have some of loaded up here. So I've loaded up really the 40 pin, 28 and 24 pin. I took 24 pin sockets and I cut them down to, I think these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They are 18 pin, 600 mil. I didn't have any sockets, so I just trimmed 24 pin down. These are for the 7-segment displays. And I've tried to get sockets kind of near every corner that I could, so when I flip the board over to solder, it's kind of supported everywhere, if that makes any sense. Some of these were pretty tight to put in, so they're not going to fall over when I flip the board over. Others, I think, are going to require a bit of tape to hold them in place. But I'm going to go ahead and just kind of snug everything in place. I know these three here, not tearing well, were just fine. They took a fair amount of pressure to actually, well, I say that. The 28 pin wants to flop around. Let's go ahead and flip this over. And we just have a little hint of the pins poking through. Enough that I can solder. See, this is a fairly thick printed circuit board. We looked at this in a couple of videos back where I thought about using wrap sockets. I've kind of decided against that. I'm just going to go with regular sockets. But I'm going to spend a little bit of time making sure that everything, you know, comes through flush. And what I'm going to do here is, for now, I'm just going to hit corner pins in some places. And I'm just going to tack really those corner pins in place. Then I can check the sockets for level. I'm pressing down on the board. To hold it in place. The original sockets that the board came with were single wipe, which I am not a fan of. These are double wipe sockets, which I think are more reliable. They actually make contact the two sides of the IC pin rather than just one side. Sure, my hands are getting in the way here, but I'm putting pressure down on the board to try to push the socket up flush. We've got these two back here kind of loaded up. And again, I'm just going to hit corner pins with a bit of flux on the two. Well, that was way too much flux. Where I have sockets. And again, I'm going to put pressure down on the board. This is really interesting to do because I can't really see the pins poking up out. I can feel it with the soldering pencil tip. So it means that the solder I'm applying, I don't have an IC socket pin poking up through it. To really know if it's a good solder joint, and that's kind of weird in itself. I've got these 24 pinners here. Flux isn't going to hurt. And same thing, I'm going to put pressure on the board. I can hear my one of my 3D printers downstairs, I believe. That's what I'm hearing up here. I don't know if the microphone's picking it up or not. I don't think that's noise from outside. I'm hoping I'm getting enough dwell time here that the solder is actually flowing into the via. down into the hole. These two here should have sockets. Oh, well, I'm flexing opposite corners than I have been doing all along, but that's okay. Missed one socket here, the 28 pin. Them all, see if they're relatively flush. And really it becomes soldering, and I'm going to use, moving here forward, a soldering pin instead. Once I get it to flow here. Come on. Dry as a come on. So far nothing. I can hear a little bit of flux in there. Why aren't you flowing? These are cheap Chinese. Felt's completely dry. Is this dried out? And I hear a little bit of flux noise in there. Well, they were cheap. I got a whole slew of them. Not realizing I was getting a whole slew of them, I thought I was getting a couple of pins. Like I say, they were still very cheap. That definitely sounds fuller. I know I've got one of these to flow before. Okay, there's actually... This one's actually flowing. Let's see how well that solders up. Well, you can certainly hear the flux, making flux noises. I can taste it in the air. Ooh, that's harsh and nasty. I may have to get a fan out here. But you get the idea. Yeah, a lot of that flux flowed through the other side of the board. Well, solder joints seem reasonable. So I am not going to bore you with the rest of this in real time, I will, of course, time-lapse it or speed it up or whatever it's called, just so you can capture the whole thing if you want to. If you don't want to watch the rest of the soldering, that's awesome. If you do, enjoy. We'll see you in the next video.